I am Craig. I'm the writer and editor for ECS Tuning, among other things that involve the English language, and I drive a 1988 BMW 325i convertible. I guess really the defining moment that really took me away from actually computers and writing and poetry as my primary interests was living in Germany for a little while. My uncle had a Porsche 993 and I wanted to learn how to drive stick shift, and he taught me in that Porsche over in France. It was legal. I was 17 at the time. You can drive with a US license in France at 16 or 17. And we actually were up at a monument to the company that one of our family members had been through in World War II, and there's this big open parking lot, and he showed me how to drive his Porsche, and then I got to drive it a little bit while we were there in Alsace, France. And I came back home, and the first thing I did was started buying cars. So I just kind of started collecting E30 parts, bought my first E30, bought another E30, and I already had a bunch of parts. I had engines lying around. I had full interiors sitting around. I thought, hey, I've been working on these cars for a little over a year now. Got a massive collection of parts. I've got everything I'd need to work on it. What could go wrong with having an E30 daily? So I found the cleanest one I could find, which was this one. I drove up to Indiana to pick it up. Still actually in really good contact with the original owner of the car and his son, who I've helped quite a bit with his E30s. And I thought, yeah, this would be a great daily. So I bought it entirely stock. Had like 130,000 miles on it. Guy barely drove it. And I immediately started having to tear into it because it looked really good on the surface, and then underneath it was there was no rod or anything, but basically every single maintenance issue that there has ever been with E30s, this car had, and then some. So I just kind of started tearing into it, and that sort of snowballed into what it is now. So it is a M52 B28 swap with S50 cams, M50 intake manifold. So M50 intake manifold with the Turner conversion kit. The reason I use the Turner one, besides working here, is because this is a complete kit. It's not like a patch job. So it's actually got an adapter plate that allows you to have lower risk of vacuum leaks, whereas other kits on the market, or if you wanted to make your own kit, would basically just be like a spaghetti nest of hoses. Cooling system is our ECS aluminum cooling system upgrade with the radiator, Spal electric fan. I use the late model coolant surge tank because it holds a little bit better pressure than the early model. I've actually been through several different cooling setups with this car. I've tried the late model E30 radiator, which does work, but it's not really a large enough volume for the larger engine. And so you run into a little bit of cooling issues there. I've also run a 318 Ti radiator with the attached surge tank, and it will fit, it does work, but again, you kind of run into that same volume issue. So that's been the best setup that I've found so far. My fan cuts on at 180 degrees, which is great. It keeps it nice and cool. I've had this thing in the middle of downtown Savannah in stop and go traffic for over an hour and never saw above 200 degrees. My most recent addition was the exhaust. So I went with just eBay knockoff. They're actually a knockoff of the Turner Motorsport shorty headers, but they're equal length stainless steel headers. And the reason I went with those is because I already had downpipes made to adapt the E36 stock headers. So my downpipes fit straight up, and then I was able to cut those off, put V-bands there, and then make the exhaust system back from there. These are like kind of Bosozoku style. Obviously, I'm a bit of a Japanophile. The stock E30 exhaust does kind of kick out at an angle and does kick up a little bit and sticks out past the bumper, especially on a plastic bumper car. So it's sort of true to form, but I just wanted it to be a little more exaggerated and a little obnoxious and kind of in your face. I definitely want to keep the stinger pipes, which they get their name because, man, it hurts if you walk into them. If I was wearing shorts, you could see a nice gash in my shin where I walked into them after the day after I put them on the car. So it's actually just a single section of 10-foot pipe all the way to V-bands at my downpipes, and then the downpipes are bolted to the headers. The exhaust shop special. So moving on to suspension and steering. Suspension is Koni adjustable dampers, H&R race springs. I have the E90 drop hats, which helps it sit a little bit lower in the front. And I also use the HD, like the solid rubber Miley HD upper strut mounts for the front and rear, as well as the ECS rear reinforcement plates. But it's a Z3 2.8 rack, so it's 2.5-ish turns lock to lock, which is way better than the slow ratio that's in the E30. And it's even faster than the E30 M3. I've got, I need to replace this hood strut, or the trunk strut actually, but ain't no laws when you're drinking the claws. Extra fuses because I did all the wiring in this car, so naturally there are some hiccups. And a fire extinguisher because same reason. I did all the wiring in this car, so just want to make sure if it catches fire, I can keep it from staying on fire. And then I know everybody's gonna ask about the pool noodles. That's actually, and I can show you here if we want to put the top down, a trick that our mini brand manager gave me, which is to use a pool noodle for the convertible rear vinyl. You put the pool noodle in here and then let it kind of fold around the pool noodle so you don't end up with a bunch of kinks in your convertible top. So it keeps it kind of nice, keeps it from getting all creased up and looking gross and doing the general thing that convertible vinyl rear windows do. So inside the car, I've pretty much left it as stock as I could. The only things I've really changed have been M-Tech 1 steering wheel I robbed out of another E30 that I had that came with its stock. And then the head unit, all E30 factory head units are garbage. And it's not like this one's much better, but it has an aux port. So I can use my handy dandy adapter here. I haven't really moved into the 21st century with Bluetooth yet, but this works perfectly fine. And then for shifter stuff, so shift boot, e-brake boot, obviously not stock. And then this car did have the cassette holder here, and it was just broken and gross. So I took it out and swapped in another one I found in a junkyard that was in decent condition. And then a Z3 shift lever. So it's a little bit of a short shift kit. And then all the bushings and cup bearing and shifter arm and bitch clip, all that's brand new. And then really everything else in the interior is pretty much stock, the way it came. So it's actually late model body swapped. So it's got the plastic bumpers and then the late model 325 IS valance and front lip spoiler, as well as the fog lamps, which I wired one up when I first did the conversion and left the other because the fog lamps that came on the diving board E30s, especially the convertibles, which would sit here, they only had one plug for both. And obviously I have two lights and it needs two plugs. So I finally did that actually this past weekend and got both of my fog lamps working. And when I got the car, it had the early model valance, which is really like not aggressive at all. And it looks kind of like imagine a dog, you know, when they kind of like bite their bottom lip, it kind of looks very overbitey. So when you're doing the conversion, the front bumper basically mounts right up. So like if you look at a converted E30, you can usually tell because on the front, this little part here, where it wraps into the actual like arch for the fender, it's either gonna be too far out or too far in, and somebody that takes their time and knows what they're doing can get it to fit very, very well, but there's always gonna be a little bit of a gap here, and then you can actually see it a little bit better in the back. So if you're looking at the right angle, you can see daylight right through here. And that's how you can tell it's been converted. And then again, this is where you're gonna be able to really notice. Usually people will have it where it kind of sticks out here or it sits back. Previous owner was very, very, very meticulous when he swapped this over and measured 50 times and cut once for those rear bumper supports. You can always also spot an early model converted because they're gonna have the early model 2-bar taillights. So the late models have bigger, like 3-bar taillights. Early models have the 2 bars. Oh, and then obviously it's missing the big chunky convertible third brake light. So this is actually a sedan 325i trunk. And little known fact about the E30s, all E30s, Tourings, sedans, convertibles, coupes, early model, late model, Bauer, whatever, M3, all of them have the same exact wheelbase. So one of the few things you can swap between all of them is trunk, fenders, hood, windshields, bumpers, and mechanical parts. But yeah, so they all have the same wheelbase, same basic body. They were very, very modular. This is Akane from SSS.Gridman. She's kind of like the bad guy, but also kind of not. So she is on this car, and the kind of protagonist girl is on my daily driver. So this is the bad guy car. I've got Das Vader on the plate. So this is like the bad guy car, and then my daily's like the good guy car, basically. But yeah, so there's actually a lot more. I took a bunch of stickers off this car to make it look a little less weeby, but so they're all still inside the trunk and on my refrigerator at home, to my girlfriend's chagrin. Oh.